Welcome, Don Finto here with Caleb Global. I want to today to invite you into a challenge that the Lord gave me the other day that I believe applies to you and to all of us as believers. We were in our morning worship and prayer at Caleb Global, and we sang the song, "When you walk into the room, everything changes." Obviously, that's talking about Yeshua, Jesus, that when he comes in the room, everything changes. But when we were singing that song, the Lord reminded me, well, first of all, he just said, let's change that. Let's talk about you. When you walk into the room, everything should change. And of course, I immediately began to realize that we are to be like Jesus. That John 14:12 passage is there again, that where Jesus said that anyone who believes on me will do the things I'm doing. And even greater things will he do because I'm going to the Father. And John in 1 John 4:17 says, as he is, so are we in the world. And so I began to realize, and I've been challenged by it, that whether I'm walking into a store, a bank, I'm at a service station, wherever I am, that when I walk into the room, whether there are believers in the room or not, that everything changes, that I carry the Lord with me. I remember the morning after, the night that I had fully surrendered in every way I knew how to the Holy Spirit, and I was driving to teach my 8 o'clock freshman Bible class at Lipscomb, and I felt like the Lord and I were saying, you're no longer just Don Finto. You're God in Don Finto. Because I knew that I had the fullness of the Holy Spirit, that I had accepted by faith, that I was no longer just who I am, but I was God in me. I was his Spirit in me. And so I've begun to try to remember to be challenged, no matter where I'm going, whether I'm going to meet with a group of pastors or whether I'm going to be with complete unbelievers or whether I'm going to be with our Caleb team, whoever I'm with, that not in an arrogant way, but in a godly, confident way, that when I walk into the room, everything changes. And when I'm walking in the room with my family, may I so stand for godliness that somehow the spiritual atmosphere of the room changes when I come in. But I pray that for you. I believe that's the challenge that I believe we're supposed to have. We're supposed to carry with us a certain radiance. In fact, Psalm 34:5 says, depending on the translation on how it is, but those who fear the Lord are radiant. And you remember when Moses had been with the Lord so long that his face was so radiant that he had to put a veil over it because people couldn't look at him. And not that people are supposed to put a veil over their faces, but I yearn for that. I yearn for the time when we're walking down the street and somebody stops us because I saw you across the street, or I saw you. There's something different about you. I mean, I don't know what it is. What is it? And this all reminded me of a program that I saw on 700 Club years ago. There was a man who was known to be not godly at all, and his wife became so disgusted with him that she left him with her daughter, and this put the men into such a tailspin that he, a very wealthy man, he went out one night late, about midnight, on the beach in front of his Malibu home, and raised his hand and yelled help to a God that he didn't believe in. And he went back into his den, and Jesus appeared to him. Now, he's done that before. He did that with Saul. He was so blown away, but he didn't know what to do with it. He started calling some of his friends, and they thought he was high on some drug or something and didn't pay any attention to it. But 6 weeks later, more or less, that's what I remember, he was at a Hollywood party, and he couldn't keep his eyes off of a couple across the room from him. And he finally just walked over to them and sat down and said, why can't I keep my eyes off you? You're different from anybody else in the room. What is it? You're just different. I mean, I saw the way you relate to people, the way you relate to each other. There's something unique about you. What is it? Well, they knew who he was, and they knew that he was not a believer. But they said, do you really want to know? And he said, yes, I do. And the long and short of it is that they pulled him aside, began to talk to him, and he gave his life to Jesus that night. Why? Because their faces were radiant. And so I want to challenge you, and I'm accepting this challenge for myself, that when I walk into the room, when you walk into the room, everything changes. I pray that this is true with your close family, that you become so full of the Spirit of God that when you walk in the room with those that are most familiar to you, that everything changes. So-and-so is here. Whether you're young or old, when you walk into the room, everything changes. May we receive that challenge and walk in it.